Hey guys, Miss Morell here with your recap of 8th grade science instruction for Wednesday and Thursday, October 28th and 29th. We have continued our study of plate boundaries and plate interactions. So let's take a look real quickly at our learning targets. We can diagram and explain convection, which is the convection currents take place in the mantle. And that's where warm material or material heats up, warms up, becomes less dense as it rises. Because it's less dense, it moves away from the heat source. So it cools off and drops back down. And that's what's happening in the Earth's mantle. And those huge convection currents are what are causing plate movement. We have talked about the different kinds of zones of plate boundaries, faults. So we've talked about the kinds of landforms that are found at each kind of fault. We know that volcanoes, both underwater and on land, can occur at a convergent boundary, and underwater they can occur at a divergent boundary. So let me start over here. 3 kinds of boundaries: convergent, divergent, transform. At a convergent boundary, you have 3 different possibilities. You can have continental plates pushing together, and if that happens, you get uplift and mountain building. So that would be like the Himalaya Mountains or the Rocky Mountains. Then if you have continental oceanic is more dense. So it drops beneath the continental plate. And as it drops down, it begins to melt and it recycles Earth's crust. As the crust melts, it releases carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide will work its way up through the crust and come out as a volcano. So you get volcanoes at subduction zones at convergent boundaries. Where the crust dives beneath the continental crust, a very deep ocean trench can form. Remember, like the Marianas Trench is 35,000 feet deep. So that's a very deep trench along the edge of that subduction zone where one plate is diving down beneath the other plate. And then finally, you can also have a oceanic and an oceanic plate converging. And when that happens, you can get underwater volcanoes and island arcs, volcanic arcs. So underwater mountains, underwater volcanoes, and volcanic arcs. So that's convergent boundaries. Divergent boundaries, mainly 2 places on Earth. The first one is the Atlantic Ocean, where the 2 plates are pulling apart. It's called seafloor spreading. And as Hess discovered back in the 50s, there is a 12,000 mile long mountain range at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean where mountains have formed because of underwater volcanoes. So the mid-ocean ridge, where seafloor spreading is taking place, is the place where new crust is formed on Earth. And so you get underwater mountains, underwater volcanoes at that mid-ocean ridge. If you have 2 continental plates diverging, then you get a rift valley, like the Great African Rift Valley in East Africa. Not a whole lot of volcanic activity there, but some. Not really enough to form a mountain chain like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And then eventually what will happen is that kind of bowl-shaped Rift Valley will fill up with water and it will become an inland sea, but that'll be a million years from now. So we don't need to worry about that. So there is LT5, that's seafloor spreading. The subduction zone happens at the convergent boundary. We talked about those crustal features just now. And then we've talked about all 3 kinds and the crustal features that happen at each of those types of boundaries. So those are the learning targets. That's where we are. We're still working on this stuff. We did our warm-ups today. We reviewed both divergent and convergent boundaries. So if you are hung up for your project and not quite sure where to turn, go back to these pages. Everything is linked right here for you. You can see videos of the motion that'll help you with the questions about Newton's laws, how they apply here. You can see what crustal features, also called landforms, are formed at each one. All of this is information that you'll need for your project. So if you can't remember, look it up. It's in your agendas. So there's your divergent boundary page. Here's your convergent boundary page. And then today we talked about transform boundaries. So all three types of boundaries are right here for you to use for that project. So we also completed our warm-ups for the day. We did warm-ups and then had time to work on our homework. And then the rest of the class, we worked on our projects, because don't forget, your projects, if you are an A day, it's due on November 5th. If you are a B day, no, it's due November 4th. Yes, Wednesday, November 4th. If you're a B day, it's due Thursday, November 5th. So that is your project. That's what we did in class today. I'll also continue visiting with you guys one-on-one. Your teacher will be visiting with you one-on-one just to touch in about some of this material, just to make sure your learning is where it needs to be as we move forward. All right. Have an awesome day. I will talk to you soon. Thank you for your attention.